I didn't tell my father what I'd found 3 days earlier. Instead, I said, "That's great for him. The way you'd congratulate someone at a funeral. Polite. Final. Done." He sat across from me at the kitchen table where I'd done homework, where Mom used to set out Sunday breakfast, where we'd sign papers after her funeral. His coffee was getting cold. He was waiting for me to react differently to his announcement, $50,000 for Mason's down payment. The kitchen still smelled like her lemon polish. The cabinets she'd restored gleamed. The ones Dad said were too much work. She'd done them anyway. Stripped, sanded, stained them that warm honey color. They were hers. "Sarah, I know this seems unfair," he started. I held up my hand. "It's your money. Your brother has a family. He needs stability. You're doing well on your own." I was doing well because I'd worked 60-hour weeks for 8 years. Because when Mom got sick, I rearranged my life, used vacation days, slept in hospital chairs. Mason visited twice. Both times Dad made excuses. I stood. Dad looked confused. There should be more, his expression said. Yelling. Tears. Begging. I need to get back to work. We should talk about this. You made a choice. I'm making one too. I closed the door, quietly, the way Mom taught me. The $50,000 for Mason wasn't the problem. What I'd found in those documents was, I'd found Dad's updated will by accident. Mason was 36, 3 years older than me. Pharmaceutical sales, decent money, wife, and 2 kids in a rental. I was a project manager at a tech firm, owned a condo I'd bought at 28. Mom had been so proud. She'd helped me paint the bedroom that soft gray I wanted. Dad had always been different with Mason. Nothing provable. But I'd been keeping score for 33 years, and the math never worked out equal. When Mason crashed Dad's car senior year, Dad bought him a used Honda the next month. When I asked to borrow his car for prom, he said I could take Mom's sedan. When Mason dropped out of college, Dad helped him into sales training. When I switched my major from nursing to computer science, Dad asked if I was sure I could handle the math. I graduated with a 3.8. He never mentioned it. Mom saw it. The way she'd squeeze my hand when Dad cut me off at dinner. The way she told me, 3 weeks before she died, that the ruby ring she wore every day was for me. Not in the will. Just for me. She made me take it then. Said she didn't want any confusion later. I'd worn it ever since. Someone had seen me clearly. That someone hadn't been my father. The first crack came 8 months before the kitchen table conversation. Mason called on a Tuesday night. He never called. His voice sounded careful. "Hey, heads up. Dad and I have been talking about the inheritance stuff." "What inheritance stuff?" "Planning. He's getting older. Mom had died 2 years earlier. Cancer, fast and brutal. 6 weeks from diagnosis to funeral. Dad had been methodical about settling her estate. Everything split exactly in half. The house sold. The money divided. "I didn't know you two were talking about that," I said. "Well, yeah. He's 70. Something in the way he said it. More like he was testing how much I knew. What kind of planning?" "Making sure his wishes are clear. Medical stuff. Power of attorney. And you're handling that." He asked me to. Because of the kids, I think. I lived 40 minutes away. Mason lived 20. Mom used to make the drive to my place every other Sunday. She'd bring flowers from her garden. Drink coffee the way she liked it. "Makes sense," I said. After we hung up, I sat with my phone, staring at Mom's ring. Something was happening. 5 months later, Dad asked me to bring him documents from Mom's old desk. I still had it in my spare room. The roll-top desk she'd used for bills and correspondence. Dad said he needed property tax records for his accountant. The tax records were in the bottom drawer, filed under T. Next to them, under W, I found a manila folder labeled Will, updated 2023. I sat on the floor and opened it. The house Mom had loved, chosen every paint color for, renovated with money from her library job, was going entirely to Mason. Not split, just to Mason, because he had a family. The retirement accounts were split 60-40. Mason's favor, greater financial needs, the note said. Even Mom's life insurance payout, distributed equally 2 years ago, had been reallocated in a memo. An extra $20,000 for Mason, for the grandchildren's education. Everything tilted, everything adjusted, everything rationalized. But it was the date that made me physically ill. Dad had signed this document in April, 3 months after Mason's phone call. But the first draft, the consultation notes, were dated March 14th. Mom had died October 3rd. Dad had started planning this while she was still alive. I called Dad. My hands were shaking. I found the will. Silence. Then, Sarah, I was going to tell you. When? After you gave Mason everything. The house makes sense for him. You have your own place. Mom paid for half that house. More than half. That was our marriage, not yours. Her estate was split equally. That was her wish. He was quiet for a long moment. Your mother would want this family to stay together. She'd be heartbroken to see you tear it apart over money. I looked at the ring on my hand. I'll call you later. 3 weeks after that, Dad invited me to Sunday dinner. Mason was there. Jennifer had made potato salad. The kids played in the backyard where Mom's garden used to be. I looked out the window while Mason talked about basketball hoops. The backyard was concrete now, flat, gray. The garden where Mom grew tomatoes and basil and purple flowers was gone. Dad had it paved over 6 months after the funeral. Too much work to maintain, he said. Sarah. Jennifer was looking at me. You have to understand where we're coming from. Mason has responsibilities, children to raise. You're single, no mortgage, making 6 figures. What do you even need it for? I set down my fork. I need to go. We haven't had dessert. I looked at Dad. He was quiet, letting them handle it, the way he always did. Thanks for dinner, I said. I drove home and sat in my car for 20 minutes. Then I pulled out my phone. Richard Chun, estate attorney. I had kept his number after Mom's probate closed. I knew why now. Richard Chin remembered me. Sarah, how are you holding up? I need advice. Confidentially. His tone shifted. What's going on? I explained everything. The house to Mason. The 60-40 retirement split. The reallocation of Mom's life insurance. The date, March 14th, 7 months before Mom died. Richard was quiet. Did your father discuss any of this beforehand? No. I found it by accident. If your mother contributed to the purchase or maintenance, if she paid the mortgage, there could be arguments about what was truly joint property. They bought it together. Both worked. Both paid. Then you might have a claim. I'd need documentation, bank statements, anything showing her contributions. I have the will. I took photos. Good. What else? Her bank statements. For years' worth. Maybe more. Bring them. Anything she wrote about the house, about you and your brother. Letters, emails, planners. There are planners. 5 or 6 years. Bring those especially. Sarah, I need to be direct. This will be difficult. Your father will hire his own attorney. Mason will be hostile. There will be depositions, possibly a trial. I thought about Sunday dinners I wasn't invited to. About Mason's calls that only came when he needed something. About Dad's careful distance, his clear preference. What relationship? I said, then we argue that your mother's contributions created an expectation of equal distribution that your father is now violating. When can we start? Tomorrow. Bring everything you have. I spent 2 weeks going through Mom's files. Every bank statement, every canceled check, every receipt in labeled envelopes. The down payment records from 1988. Dad contributed $38,000. Mom contributed $42,400 from her mother's inheritance. 53%. Mortgage payment records spanning 28 years. Every month, 2 checks, equal amounts. Receipts for the kitchen renovation, $8,400. Bathroom remodel, $12,200. New roof, $6,800. HVAC replacement, $9,200. All from Mom's library job savings. Then I found something that made me sit down. Mortgage statements from 2012, March through October. 8 months, all marked paid in Mom's handwriting. Attached, a note on Dad's company letterhead. Temporary layoff, April 2012. Severance insufficient. Unable to contribute to household expenses until rehired. Mom had carried the house alone for 8 months. $11,000 when Dad couldn't. A thank you card tucked inside. Dad's handwriting. I don't know what I'd do without you. You saved us. I won't forget this. He'd forgotten. I brought everything to Richard. He spread it across his conference table. Went through it with a yellow highlighter, marking deposits, checks, Mom's contributions. This is substantial, he said. Your mother contributed more to the purchase and maintenance of this property than your father did. How much more? He pulled up a calculator, added figures for 20 minutes. Based on these records, your mother contributed approximately $418,000. Your father contributed $392,000. So it was more hers. Significantly, the question is whether we can prove your mother intended for this to be split equally between her children. I pulled out the planners. 5 black leather books, 2016 through 2020. Let's find out, I said. Richard found it on page 43 of the 2019 planner. February 12th. Mom's careful script. Talked to Sarah about the house today. She loves it as much as I do. Told her it will always be half hers, no matter what. February 12th, 2019. 1 month before Dad's first meeting with the estate attorney. Mom had known something. Richard photographed the page. This is intent. Clear, documented intent. Is that enough? Combined with the financial records? Yes, I think it is. He kept reading. Found more entries. Notes about fixing the cabinets. Notes about paying for the new water heater when Dad said they couldn't afford it. Notes about the garden, about wanting Sarah to have clippings when she got her own place. And then, June 20th, 2019. Told I want Sarah to have the jewelry and the ring. She'll need proof someday. He didn't ask proof of what. Richard looked up. Did she give you the ring before she died? I held up my hand. 3 weeks before. Made me take it right then. Said she didn't want any confusion later. She was protecting you. Making sure you had something he couldn't take back. She knew he'd do this. Maybe not the specifics, but she knew enough. He closed the planner. Sarah, I'm going to bring in a forensic accountant. Someone who can review these records and provide expert analysis. Someone who can testify. You think we'll go to court? I think your father will fight this, but I also think we're going to win. I touched the ring. Mom had given me proof. Now I had to decide whether to use it. I didn't sleep for 3 days. On the 4th night, I got up and pulled out photo albums from Mom's desk. Pictures of birthdays, holidays, graduations. Mason and me as kids. Mom in her garden wearing the ring. Dad with his arm around her, smiling. We'd been a family once. Or I'd thought we had been. I almost called Richard. Almost told him to drop it. What if I was wrong? What if Mom would have wanted me to let it go, to keep the peace, to choose family over fairness? Then I looked at the date. February 12th. 5 years since Mom had written in her planner that the house would always be half mine. I opened the planner to that page. Read her words again. Told her it will always be half hers, no matter what. Not unless it causes problems. Not unless your father disagrees. No matter what, Mom hadn't just given me permission. She'd given me instructions. She'd documented her wishes, preserved the evidence, prepared me for this fight. If she'd wanted me to stay quiet, she wouldn't have written those words. She wouldn't have made me take the ring 3 weeks before she died. She'd known I'd need her voice when everyone else was telling me to be quiet. My friend Kate had called earlier that week, asked if it was worth it. Is the money really worth losing your family over? I'd told her I'd think about it. Now, sitting on my bedroom floor with Mom's planner open in my lap, I had my answer. It wasn't about the money. It was about being erased. About watching them give away everything Mom built as if she'd never contributed, never mattered, never existed as anything more than Dad's wife and Mason's mother. I picked up my phone and texted Richard, "File it." He responded in 30 seconds, first thing Monday morning. Dad called 4 days after the petition was filed. "What the hell is this, Sarah?" Not hello, just anger, immediate and sharp. It's a petition to establish a constructive trust on Mom's portion of the estate. Your mother's estate was settled. You got your half. I got half of what you decided to sell. Now you're giving your half entirely to Mason, except it's not entirely your half. Mom contributed more. That's my choice to make. Not if half of it was Mom's contribution and she wanted it split equally. Silence, then quieter. Are you seriously suing your own father? I'm protecting my mother's wishes. Your mother wanted this family to stay together. She'd be heartbroken to see you tear it apart over a few $1,000s. The words landed exactly where he aimed them. I looked at the ring. Mom told me the house would always be half mine. February 2019. She wrote it in her planner. I have the documentation. I have the bank records showing she contributed more than you did. I have the mortgage statements from 2012 when she carried the house alone for 8 months. Another silence. Longer this time. Sarah, please, think about what this will do to the family. Think about your brother. I have thought about it. For months. While you and Mason planned this without telling me. You're being unreasonable. Maybe. But I'm not backing down. You'll regret this. Maybe. But I'll regret it less than pretending Mom didn't matter. Talk to your lawyer then. I'll talk to mine. I'll see you in court, I said and hung up first. Mason called that night. Late. His voice was different than I'd ever heard it. Sarah, Dad told me you're going through with this. I am. A long pause. You really think I don't deserve the house? I think Mom deserved to have her wishes honored. Dad's wishes aren't the same as Mom's. You know that. You were in those meetings. March 2019. She was still alive, Mason. Silence. Then, quieter, he said she'd understand. That she'd want me to have it because of the kids. Did she tell you that? Did she ever say that to you? Nothing. Or did Dad tell you what she would have wanted after she couldn't speak for herself? It's not like I asked him to do this, Sarah. He offered. And you took it. You knew I'd get nothing, and you took it anyway. I have a family to think about. Responsibilities you don't. Don't. My voice came out harder than I intended. Don't finish that sentence. You visited Mom twice while she was dying. Twice. I was there every day. Every single day. So don't talk to me about family responsibilities. That's not fair. None of this is fair. That's the point. Mom contributed more to that house than Dad did. She wanted it split equally between us. And you and Dad decided, while she was alive, to make sure I'd never see a dime of it. Tell me how that's fair. He was quiet for a long time. I didn't know about the 2012 stuff. The mortgage payments. Now you do. Sarah, can we work something out? Outside of court? Your lawyer already tried that. The answer is no. I'm asking as your brother. Then, as your sister, I'm telling you, you should have thought about that before you helped Dad plan how to cut me out of Mom's legacy. I hung up. I sat in the dark for a long time after that, my hands shaking. Part of me had wanted him to say he didn't know, that Dad had manipulated him, that he'd been as blindsided as I was. But he'd known. He'd been in those meetings. He'd helped plan it. He'd chosen this too. Richard filed for discovery. Dad's attorney, Paul Brenner, fought everything. The judge was a woman named Patricia Okonkwo. She listened to both sides, then ordered partial discovery. Dad had to produce the financial records. They arrived 4 weeks later. 200 pages of carefully structured transfers and allocations. Everything tilted, everything adjusted, everything rationalized. But it was the first consultation date that made my hands shake. March 15th, 2019. Mom died October 3rd, 2019. 7 months. While she was still healthy, still working at the library, still tending her garden. While I was visiting every other Sunday, drinking coffee on my balcony. While everything seemed normal. He'd been planning this, preparing to cut me out. Richard, I said. He started this while she was alive. Richard nodded. I saw that. It suggests he knew she wouldn't agree, that he was preparing to work around her wishes. We subpoenaed the estate attorney Mason had recommended, Gerald Foster. His records showed 4 meetings. The first on March 15th, 2019. Foster's notes were brief but damning. March 15th. Client wishes to ensure primary asset stays with elder son. Concerned younger daughter may contest if aware of plans. Advised updating documents after wife's passing to avoid complications during her lifetime. They'd known I wouldn't accept it. They'd known it was wrong. They'd planned around me, specifically. I read the line again. Avoid complications during her lifetime. They'd waited for her to die. I looked at Richard. When's the hearing? 6 weeks. Good. I want her to see this. Richard brought in a forensic accountant named Diana Wu. She spent 8 weeks reconstructing 30 years of financial records. Her report was 73 pages. Mom, $418,000 in contributions. Dad, $392,000. The house Dad was trying to give entirely to Mason? Mom had put in more. In 2012, when Dad's company had layoffs, Mom made the full mortgage payment for 8 months. $11,000 from her savings, her retirement, her mother's inheritance. Diana included Dad's thank you note in the appendix. You saved us. I won't forget this. Diana's conclusion: the marital residence should be considered 53% owned by deceased spouse, 47% by surviving spouse. Current estate plan allocating 100% of property to one heir represents material deviation from equitable distribution and contradicts documented intent. Richard looked up. This wins the case. When do we present it? 2 weeks. The courthouse smelled like floor wax and old paper. Dad sat with Mason and Brenner at one table. I sat with Richard at another. 20 feet between us. Judge Okonkwo entered. She opened the file and read in complete silence for 4 minutes. This is a petition to establish a constructive trust over the marital residence. Mr. Chin, please proceed. Richard walked through the timeline. The house purchased in 1988. Mom's 53% down payment from her inheritance. 28 years of equal mortgage payments. Then the shift, Dad meeting with Mason's attorney in March 2019, 7 months before Mom died. The decedent contributed more than half the property value. She documented her wish for equal distribution. The respondent worked to restructure his estate in opposition to her expressed intent. Brenner stood. My client has every right to distribute his assets as he sees fit. Except it's not entirely his, Richard said. He introduced the 2012 mortgage records. 8 months, Mom carried the payments alone. Dad's thank you note. Judge Okonkwo turned to Dad. Did your wife make these payments? Dad stood. Yes, temporarily. I paid her back. Did she ask you to? No. I insisted. It was our house. Your house, not yours alone. She turned back to Richard. Walk me through the estate planning timeline. He read from Foster's notes. Concerned younger daughter may contest if aware of plans. Advised updating documents after wife's passing to avoid complications during her lifetime. Mr. Brenner, can you explain why your client began restructuring his estate specifically to avoid his wife's knowledge? Brenner started to answer. Stopped. Silence. Judge Okonkwo closed the file. This court finds sufficient evidence to establish a constructive trust over 53% of the marital residence value. That portion will be distributed equally between both children, as the decedent intended. The respondent may distribute his 47% as he wishes, but he will not give away assets that were not entirely his to give. The gavel came down. Richard touched my shoulder. It's done. I looked at the ring. Yes, it is. The house appraised at $465,000. Mom's 53%, $246,000. Split between us, $123,000 each. Dad gave his 47% to Mason. Mason had to buy me out. $123,000 he hadn't budgeted for. He tried to refinance. 3 banks. His debt-to-income ratio was too high. He called once. Sarah, please. We can work something out. The court order says 30 days. I can't. Then sell the house. This is my family's home. It was Mom's home first. He sold it in 42 days to a developer who tore it down for 2 townhouses. Dad's attorney advised equalizing the retirement accounts. Any future challenge would point to the court's ruling. He adjusted everything. 50-50, like Mom wanted. Jennifer posted on Facebook 2 weeks after the ruling. 3 people sent screenshots. Some people care more about money than family. My husband's sister just sued her own father. Greed is a disease. Mom's friend Carol responded publicly with a photo of Mom in her garden, wearing the ring. Margaret Morrison told me that ring was for Sarah. Proof that someone saw her clearly. Margaret contributed more to that house than anyone. She saved it when it would have been lost, and she wanted her children, both of them, to share it equally. Some people care more about erasing women's contributions than honoring them. Jennifer deleted her post. The screenshot stayed. Dad's sister Linda called 3 weeks later. I knew your mother saved that house in 2012. I lent her $2,000. She never told your father. A pause. I'm glad you fought, Sarah. Mason stopped coming to family events. Dad hosted Thanksgiving. I was invited. Mason wasn't there. I bought a small house 7 months later. 3 bedrooms, older neighborhood. The backyard was dirt when I moved in. I planted tomatoes in the back corner, basil by the kitchen door, and in the center, purple butterfly bushes. The same kind Mom grew. They bloomed in July. I sat on the back steps with coffee, watching butterflies land and take off. The same ritual Mom and I used to have. I used part of the settlement to fund a scholarship, the Margaret Morrison Memorial Scholarship for non-traditional students, women going back to school, women who worked full-time, women like Mom. The first recipient was a single mother named Lisa. 2 jobs. She cried when they called her. Thank my mother, I said. She's the one who understood. Dad called occasionally. Birthdays, holidays, brief conversations. He asked about work. I asked about his health. Neither of us mentioned Mason, but there were costs I hadn't anticipated. Mason's kids, my niece and nephew, turned 8 and 6 that year. I sent birthday cards. They were returned unopened. Jennifer had made her choice clear. I'd never been close to them, but I'd imagined someday I might be. Someday when they were older, when they could understand. Now there would be no someday. They'd grow up knowing Aunt Sarah as the woman who sued their grandfather, who took their house, who cared more about money than family. Jennifer would make sure of that. I told myself it didn't matter. They were young. They wouldn't remember me anyway. But sometimes I wondered what Mom would have thought about that cost, whether she'd have considered it worth it. Then I'd look at the garden, at the purple flowers blooming in the sun, and I'd know. She already had. One Sunday, Dad showed up unannounced. He stood in the backyard, looking at the garden. Your mother would have loved this. I know. She was good at growing things. She was. He turned to me. Do you think she'd understand what you did? I looked at the butterfly bushes, at the purple flowers she loved. She told me to take the ring before she died. 3 weeks before, Dad. Not in the will. Not after. Before. She made me take it right then. Said she didn't want any confusion later. He looked at the ring like he was seeing it for the first time. She wrote in her planner that I'd need proof someday. February 2019. You were already meeting with lawyers by then. Already planning how to give everything to Mason. She didn't know the details, but she knew enough to prepare me. I met his eyes. Did she understand what I did? Yes. I think she's the only one who would. He nodded slowly. Mason wants to talk. About reconciling. No. Sarah. I hope he's doing well. I hope his family is happy. But no. Dad left 20 minutes later. I watched him drive away, then went back to the garden. The butterflies were still there, landing and taking off. Constant. Reliable. Like Mom. My father chose my brother. My brother chose money he didn't earn. I chose my mother. The thing about choosing the people who actually saw you clearly is this. You never have to justify it to the ones who didn't. I'm in my garden right now. The butterfly bushes are blooming. There's coffee on the steps. My father made his choice. I made mine. And I'm the one with the garden.